What is up, my fellow parents? Hey, how parenting changes you. What a topic. Man, don't get me started. How much has this experience changed me? How much time do you have? Jordan, I'm really pumped about this episode.
I mean, this is something that we should all think about because so often we're just in the grind. We're parents. We're like, the kids are nagging. But let's be real. Like our last conversation that we had with a special guest on, Ross Kimball, and it was really cool to kind of reflect on what it's like to be, at that point, it was dads because a bunch of dudes talking. But moms, we're talking to you as well. Grandparents, we're talking to you. Like, how has this parenting journey changed you? Because I think the arguments you're going to hear today are going to be all for the better. And I know there's probably some out there that might not be that way. But the reality is this journey makes us better, right? Better people.
Yes, it should. And I think it's so inspiring, like reading through these stories that we're going to share with our audience. It's so inspiring to see how it's changed other people. And it's just like, it's all positive today. I cannot wait to get into this with y'all.
Yeah, Sean was making breakfast this morning, was like, what should we do? And he's like, you know what? How has parenting changed me? I'm going to Google this. So we Googled it and realized how many people have come up with some really cool answers. So today we're going to kind of go through what other people are talking about how parenting has changed them. And then Sean and I just came up with 3 ways that it's changed us. And we'll give you some examples. Mine kind of goes a little deep. And hopefully yours does too.
Mine does too. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I thought deeply about this. So yeah, I was so moved by some of the stuff I found on the internet, guys, from these chat forums and some of these articles that other moms and dads have written. I just want to share little snippets, and then Jordan and I are going to share here. So here's our first one. Okay, from a chat board, this woman named Cece0692, she writes, I'm far more grounded now, and I live in the present. Before, I often got lost in thinking of the future and dwelled too much in the past. My daughter doesn't care about either of those and forces me to live in the here and now, which is a good place to be.
That's great. I don't, I never looked at it that way. That's not on my list, but it's so true. Kids just focus on right now, playing in the moment. Like, what do you want to do today? What do you want to do right now? Let's build blocks.
Right. And then they want to build blocks over and over and over and play the same games over and over. Or the teenagers, they're like, you want to think about your future teenager. Like, no, I'm here right now.
I know. And I go through this like every day, I'll have one of my kids say, hey, Dad, will you blah, 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 whatever it is, play this, throw the ball, take me here. And I'm always like, oh, I got to take the trash out. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got this on the docket, my list. And the reality is we kind of need to throw that away and just say yes and be in the moment.
Let me tell you a story I've never told anybody ever.
Oh, it was exciting.
You would never know this about me. But for most of my life, before kids, I would think about death a lot and dying. I would listen to music like The Cure, and I would listen to rock songs, and I'd be like, I'm ready to die right now. Like, I like my life. I'm happy. I'm not going to kill myself. But, like, I think death is pretty cool and exciting, and I believe in heaven, and, like, I'm okay. I could die today, and I'd be okay with it.
Wow.
Yeah. Does that sound dark to you or morbid or weird?
That sounds weird because when I was a kid, I was fearful of death.
Yeah.
And I have similar beliefs as you, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm so excited to go see what's on the other side. I'm like, no, I don't want to die.
Yeah. You probably would never guess that about me. I would, every day I'd be like, Dad could die today and I'm okay with that. And then I had kids and now I'm like, I do not want to die. I don't want to miss one moment. I don't want to.
No more skydiving
down the aisle. I want to be there. I want to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
I don't want them to grow up without a dad. Like, it's just changed everything. There's a quote I'll read in a minute from a dad that is similar.
So
to this.
that example,
I'm
going to sum that up, but is on my list, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show.
A little foreshadowing. Yeah. All right, this is really sweet. Listen to this. SJE1014 writes on a Reddit chat board, I've learned how delicate and precious life is. I'm now responsible for another human being, and I worry every day about his safety and well-being. Of course, I've worried about my family, but this is a whole different level. Everything hits me a bit harder now. Stories you hear on the news, movies with sad endings. It has put a whole new perspective on life.
Ain't that the truth? You know what my advice for someone like that is like the news, everything that you're hearing about society, that's all based off fear, and they want you to feel that way, right? To kind of help put you in a box.
Yeah.
But whenever I feel that way, I'm like, oh my gosh, climate and the flooding and people are dying here and you got COVID and oh my gosh. And then I just like, I love reading history novels, right?
Yeah.
Like Daniel Boone. Like these people survived with nothing, okay? They went through the Cumberland Gap and had to have a couple of seeds and make some freaking corn before they could eat, or they had to go hunt. So I'm like, no matter what's going on right now, like I'm going to be okay. I am fearful for the future, but in the reality is when you dumb it down and make it to its simplest form, we could survive.
Great point. I got a 5-star movie review. I used to really love the movie I Am Sam. I used to own it on DVD. And my wife will tell you that's her number one favorite movie of all time. I Am Sam was filmed about 25 years ago or so. And it stars Sean Penn and I think Dakota Fanning or Elle Fanning. And it's about a man who has a mixture of
a disability, right?
Of a mental disability and autism. And I was watching, and so we're doing family movie night. And I was like, guys, let's watch I Am Sam. And they're like, huh? And even my wife was like, eh. And I was like, Danielle, come on. You've been under a lot of stress recently. This is your favorite movie. Let's watch it. I adore that movie. It is so good. If you need a really good movie. But here's the theme. I don't want to spoiler it. But essentially, one of the themes of the story is that this man with severe mental disabilities, they say
hurdles.
that he's has a, the in the movie they keep referring to him as like the mental cognizance of a 7-year-old child. That's what they say in the movie. Okay. So then the courts get involved because they're concerned. Can this man parent an 8-year-old daughter who's now older than him?
Who's older, mentally,
I don't want to spoil it, but just the passion that this character has for like, I want my child. I'm her dad.
Right.
Don't take her away. Don't split us up. Like that pursuing, like that this is like, it's like a feeling that no poet can describe, right? This is my child. Like I want to be with them. Like that's beautiful, man.
And that's what's so cool about this journey, about this life is we're creating that feeling. Where does that feeling come from, right? Because there's not a lot of other things that have that feeling. Even in the animal kingdom, there's a sense of that feeling. You'll see these videos of like an elephant in distress, in water, and then these other elephants are coming to its rescue to save it, right? Or a water buffalo getting chased by hyenas and the others come to its safety. Like there's this connection, this bond with being a parent, even in the animal world. Yeah, it's super special.
Yeah, it is. I've got a few more quotes for us, but there's this guy who wrote this thing on Reddit. His name is Jason Chastain. And reading it, I was like, that is such a description of me. And I think for a lot of men, they can relate to what Jason writes. Are you ready? In answering the question, how parent has changed him, he writes this. Becoming a parent is definitely a life-changing experience. I compare it, for men anyway, to becoming sexually active instead of being a virgin. Okay, so I read that, and I was like, okay, you have my attention.
Right.
And then I started thinking about, boom, I just had all these memories. And for me, I don't know where he's going to go into this. I'm going to read it. But I'll tell you, after I had sex for the first time, which was with my wife, it was like the whole world was different for me. I just looked at everything differently.
Right.
It was like night and day. And I just thought about her differently. I thought about how good this was, how incredible it was. I've been waiting for this. So Pleasantville. So he writes this. This is what they didn't tell you about. You had ideas and you had guesses, but you didn't know what it really was until you did it.
That's so good.
Becoming a parent is a transformative to your mental state in even a bigger way. In fact, I'd like to describe it in taking your life from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional. Before you had children, your life is yours. Your own past, your own goals in the present, your own future of where you imagine you will be. So in a sense, it's flat like a 2-dimensional picture. Isn't this so well written?
This is so well written.
I know, from like a man, like, yes.
Yeah, this is good.
But when you become a parent, your life goes 3D. You're looking after this other person's interest above your own at all times. You're not only looking at the present, but you're looking backwards to the past and forwards to the future. You're remembering your grandparents and your parents.
Right.
And you're looking forward to your child's children and future generations.
Oh, dude.
It's like that flat picture of you was just expanded up off the table and down through it to the floor. You become much more aware of others, less selfish, more giving, and sacrificing for your family, much more appreciative of what your parents and grandparents did for you.
High five. Is Jason his name? Dude, that guy went all out.
So
So have you ever seen that new artwork you can do nowadays on like iPads where it's like a picture and then you zoom in and then it's a picture within a picture and then you can just keep zooming and keep zooming and keep zooming and keep zooming. That's what he's talking about. Yeah. And he's also talking about like time travel. Like you're in the present thinking about the past, remembering what your kid was like at this moment, but then thinking about walking down the aisle in the future. Like this is so cool.
We're having a lot of breakthroughs inside of my VIP membership, and parents just every day being like, I'm changing, my kid's changing. And one of the themes I've been hitting hard with the parents in it now is this concept of our prequels. Oftentimes when you hear prequel, you think of like a movie or superhero movie. It shows the character before the main things. But when you talk about time travel, that's what I think of. Yeah, that's what parenting does for us. It's like we travel in our minds so much more than we did before we had kids, don't we?
Yeah. And it's so true how, the first guest you were sharing their story of like, or maybe this was your story of like when you're younger, it's just me, right? And and then maybe it's just me and my girlfriend or wife or boyfriend at the time, if you're kind of listening and thinking like, well, I'm single, and then you get together, then you have this family and everything changes for the better. And that dude described it perfectly.
I know. Now here's an interesting thing that some people, when you hear this, it's going to rub you the right way. And for some, it's going to rub you the really wrong way. It's going to be painful to hear this.
Okay.
Spitzy writes this in a chat forum. I'm closer with my mom now. It's nice. We've had a rocky go. Personally, I think I'm more patient. And while some say a baby ruins a relationship, I think it's making ours stronger. And it's taught me that I have more room to love my partner.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, you know what I think I'll talk about when I come to my 3 things? You know what saying I love? Have you heard of the saying, you don't know if you don't know?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
How about this saying? If you know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this concept of like, I thought I had so much love to give, and then I had a child, and then I realized you don't know what you don't know, and if you know, you know.
It's so weird how that love bank gets bigger. You think it's full, brimming, overflowing, and then another person comes in your world, and you're like, I didn't know I had more love to give. How do I have more to give? And then another person comes if you have multiple kids.
Yeah.
I thought I was full with this one.
So true.
How do I have more for you?
I felt that in my marriage. I felt like I had a huge breakthrough like 5 years ago. I was like, what is happening to me? I am so in love with this woman more than ever. I'm like obsessed with her more than ever. And it was...
I had a family member say the same thing. Because I asked him that question. I said, what did I say? This was years ago. I asked a family member, I said, something on like, who do you love more, or something to that effect. And I was trying to figure out, does he have a favorite kid or something about love? And he says, obviously he was like, I love my wife more now than I ever have before, even more than when we got married. Like I have more love for her as we grow older together. It keeps growing and expanding. I was like, man, that's cool.
That's the dream. That's the dream. Now, I got a couple more things to quotes. This next one is going to be, I'm just digging this episode so much because it's so positive. Everything we're talking about is positive. So here's something really, really profound. Let's have a little section about how popular that this is. Many parents found, including these two moms that wrote about this, about how parenting has changed them. They write, I learned that perfectionism isn't a thing. Let me read it.
Okay.
Pre-kids. My home always had to look perfect. Chairs pushed in, nothing on the counters, made beds, laundry was done. It was perfect. Both girls' rooms were ready when they were born. Our basement was a disaster most of the last 3 years. And there's always stuff everywhere. Our house is still clean, but the stuff piles up. Beds are often unmade, and the laundry is another level. And that's okay. One day,
that is okay.
I'll miss how small they were. But it's possible for things to always look perfect and to prioritize the things that matter more.
Yeah.
I think
soon
perfectionism,
you're going to miss the chaos.
Especially it's for both. It's really for men and women, I think in different capacities. I think men really want their kids to really kind of be like them and to have the same study habits, the same hygiene habits, and they want their kids to push themselves. I think generally speaking, this is just my observation of working with your sons and daughters for 25 years. I think women are much more visual when it comes to how kids look and how they have their hair, how the house looks.
Presentation,
right?
Yeah, because it sends off a message too, and you want the message to say, like, I can take care of my family. They're not disheveled.
Oh, that's probably part of like the nesting thing. Like if you're a bird and you have like a nest and your nest is all janky and your kids and your little bird pigeons are all janky. That's like
what's society going to say about you? Yeah. I raise it. If my wife's out of town, my kids are lucky enough that they brush their teeth.
Right.
And like, maybe you good? You're good. Let's go.
And maybe for men, it's like, hey, I don't need the kids to. They care. Generally speaking, they might care less how the kids are in the house, but when they fly that nest, when they go out to soccer practice or to school, or how they act in public, maybe is more challenging for men. That sounds like it sounds more like me. Like my buttons get pushed much more if my kids are doing poorly in public than they are in the house.
That makes sense. That's a good general rule of thumb, I would think, and I would say.
This one's a little long, but this is the last one I have. And the New York Times did this incredible article, and I gleaned this from there. The New York Times asked like 13 moms how motherhood had changed them. And here's one woman named Megan O'Connell, what she writes. She writes, I realized that perfectionism is a trap. My chief concern when I had my first baby was how to do whatever was, quote, best. I don't mean best for my son or best for our family or society. Certainly not what was best for me as an individual. From pregnancy to birth to breastfeeding to sleeping arrangements, I wanted to do it all perfectly.
Right, by the book, as they say.
And there's so much information out there now. Podcasts, books, breastfeeding type things, food. There's a lot of moms out there.
At this age, you're supposed to be X, Y, or Z, so we better do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of parents that are like that now. Like, I want to do this the best I can. If only I could earn the approval of the pediatrician, the yoga teacher, the other parents at story time, anyone I came in contact with, really, then I'd know for sure I hadn't failed. What I'd lost sight of, or had never really known in the first place, what was important to me? What did I want? I had no idea. Instead, I gathered advice from La Leche League and The Business of Being Born and Ina May Gaskin. I don't know who these people are. And then I tortured myself when my failure to meet these standards made me miserable, which then took to be further sign of my inadequacy. Oh, yeah, so you're not meeting the bar that you set in your imagination, and then you pile that on with mom guilt. Super common. It wasn't until a year postpartum that I went to my first therapy appointment and started to figure out what I needed and valued, and how to ask for it and plan for it, and how else to cope in the meantime. I learned how to communicate and take my mental health seriously because otherwise my family wouldn't function. Plenty of people figure this out before having a baby or don't need to become a parent to figure it out. But for me, motherhood forced the issue. When I had another baby 4 years later, I went back to my therapist and she helped me to make tough but liberating choices like scheduling a repeat C-section, supplementing with formula, and eventually starting antidepressants. Each of these choices, especially the Prozac, especially now, have been so good for my family that I'm almost grateful for the rough start because how it changed my way of being in the world at the most elemental level.
Wow. Yeah. That's really profound that she can go through that reflection and figure that out. I think too is this world of social media that we've all kind of learned since the inception of it, right? Past the turn of the century, has been, a learning process for all of us. And a lot of us want to do that idea, that nesting idea, where we want to show that we're the best. And we're always happy, and our family is always perfect, and our kids are well respected, and they never talk back, and everything seems so happy and cheery. When the reality is, that is not the case. And that's why it's so great on shows like this, where people can be vulnerable and open.
Yeah.
And when you tell us stories, what's happening in the real world with some of your clients, it's like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought, and it is challenging, but that's the beauty of it. That's what's so great about it.
Yes.
But so many people don't share some of those trouble times, and that's fine. But I think people get a misconception of, oh, they must be so perfect. And the reality is, I don't think anybody's perfect.
Yeah, so well said, man. Well said. Okay, let's do it. Let's each share 3 ways how parenting has changed us as parents. Get us started, man. How has
All right, so
parenting
my
changed
first
you?
one is I've become way more intentional, right? Especially with me, what people have learned on this podcast of why I'm so big into the why of everything. I become more intentional with my why, with the big picture, right? There's a whole time frame here, which, I want to try to accomplish certain things, right? Like life goals. This is my life goals, or I have financial goals. These are my life goals, right? But then I've had a reality check where it's like what the first person said, live in the now, right? If we have a trip and it's a special time, we're going to do it, right? We're going to go so these kids can have a great time, right? I've realized you can't skip Halloween. You can't skip Christmas. You can't skip birthdays. Oh, I have work. Oh, I have this. We're lucky if we get 10 of those, man.
Yeah,
like,
buddy. Yeah.
These kids are growing up fast. So I've really become more intentional as to like what is actually important versus what does society say is important.
Yeah. I think if you were to ask me, thank you for sharing that. My number one is this.
Yeah.
I've become a selfless leader. Let me explain. I don't know if people would have described me before kids as a selfish person. I think that some probably
No,
would.
I would say absolutely.
Maybe
No.
I just...
You always gave back.
I don't know. I did, but I don't know, man. It's just that 3D experience. I think that I had so many hopes and dreams, and getting married and having kids, it changed those dreams, but in a good way. I think I use the term selfless leader because, like, when I see like my children doing something negative, I think like, okay, well, I'm like the CEO here. I'm the leader. I'm the teacher. And so their behavior, it requires attention. Maybe it's a reflection of me. Maybe it's not. I don't want to overthink that. All I know is that selfless leader means like, it's not about me. And I just think pre-kids, I was really good at being a bachelor and being a dad with no kids. It was like, I like having fun. I have my ways of doing it. And it was just such a shell shock for me having kids being like 2 naps a day. And I think the thing that's a teacher, like here's a quick story, for example, is like, I really want to teach my kids the value of giving and charity. So I rallied my 2 teenagers and one of their boyfriends. So we got 19, 15, and 15-year-old's boyfriend. And I said, guys, here's a challenge. I said this to them on Sunday. I'm going to give you a challenge. I want to challenge you to find some type of way to give money away this week. And let's rally together in 2 weeks. And come back and tell me a story of a person you gave money to, a charitable cause, something you donated to. And you don't need to tell me how much, but you're all making money and you all have money. And so I challenge you. You don't have to do it if you don't want to do it, but I really want you to do it. Come back and let's each share stories of how all 4 of us have used our money to do something good. And
that's great.
For me, it's just like a creative way. I'm just trying to lead my kids into good things. I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'll come back and tell you what happens in 2 weeks. And that's just how I'm thinking.
Do you feel like in this this realm of where you are, you have become more, or let's say less risk averse, like, because every decision you make is not going to only now impact you, aka Bachelor Sean, it is now impacting a tribe. So do you have to like really think about, I can't do that, that's too risky?
It's just that age, that happened a long time ago, right? I've been having kids, I've been married for 20 years, so that
Yeah.
That old Sean is gone. That old Sean is thinking about dying and living for the moment. That Sean died a long time ago. And that's like, that kind of makes sense because to be in a healthy marriage, you know, you have to have 2 funerals. And to be a healthy parent, you kind of have to have a funeral. Like part of you needs to die. Like that selfish part of you that wants to go golfing, you know, every Saturday for 5 hours.
Every weekend.
That, I'm sorry. Like unless you're a professional golfer, like that part of you needs to die. Like that seems like too much time on a Saturday. And that's just one example.
You only get a couple days a week, right, with your family.
Right.
So my second piece is matching that or mirroring that, and I just titled it maturity. And there's different categories of maturity. One of them was about FOMO. I was like, I don't have the FOMO like I used to have. It was if people were doing something and I didn't get invited, I was upset. Like, why am I not there? Right? Now I'm like, I don't care. I don't need to be hanging out with these people that I might not be friends with in another 5 or 10 years, right? Like I can say no to the guys that are going to go out to the bars or a poker night if I'd rather spend that quality time with my family.
Really good.
But also maturity with my spouse. Like I'm now open. I've become mature to where like I am listening to ideas that are from someone else. And let's say, you know, this social norm, this is how you're supposed to raise kids. This is what they're supposed to do. At this age, they're supposed to do this. Here are the rules. And then you have someone else be like, I don't really agree with the rules. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Everyone's doing that. And I had to mature to be like, okay, maybe let me listen to the other side. And we've come to an agreement. And now we aren't listening too much to society. We can listen to each other more. And that brought a lot of maturity in me as well.
Really good, dude. Really wise sharing. Yeah, so your top 2 is 1, you've become more intentional, and 2, you've become more mature.
More mature.
For me, my first one was I become a selfless leader, and my second one, if you've been listening to this podcast, then you wouldn't be surprised about what I'm about to say. The second way that parenting has changed me is that I see my childhood from a new angle. Here's a quote in that same article by New York Times. Here's a little story by Jennifer Weiner, and she writes this. Ready? It was a Sunday morning when I picked up my daughter after Hebrew school. Are you hungry? I asked. She's always hungry. When she affirmed that she was, I said, how about we go? I paused, building suspense. To the mall. We can go shopping, just me and you. Oh, Mom, she said with a wary sigh. Do we have to? I bit my lip to keep from saying something along the lines of, do you have any idea how happy I would have been if my mother had ever taken me shopping? My mother hated to shop. Plus, she had 4 kids. Our clothes are from Marshall's, purchased in bulk. My mom would grab things by the armful and dump them into the cart, muttering, this'll fit someone. When I had my own daughters, I thought about it as a chance to give them everything I've ever wanted. I wanted to give them the world. It never occurred to me that I would give birth to the 2 kids who wouldn't want it. But here I am. My girls do not want clothes. They definitely don't want to go to the mall. All the things I would have killed for, this dress, that top, a mom who could see my dreams and desires, and by extension, see me. And my daughters don't care about the first and the second, utterly for granted. What has motherhood taught me? That there's no universal template for a young woman's happiness. That what I wanted, yearned for, dreamed for is not what my girls want or yearn for or dream for. It's my job to figure out who they are and what they want, and then not give them all of it so they can have something to discuss with their therapist in 20 or 30 years. That's a funny line at the end.
I have 2 things that come to mind. Number 1 is your quote. Don't parent the child you have, parent the child you want. No.
Yep. You have to parent the child you have, not the child you want.
That's right. Yeah. Correct. But then also there's a side of me that's kind of gets sad, right? Like we have this idea like, oh man, like think about it, someone who's done professional sports their entire life, right? And they're like, I can't wait to play basketball with you, and knowing that your kid does not like the sport that you became famous for, or you're a mechanic and you're like, I can't wait to teach my kid how to work on this car. And they're like, I don't want to work on the car. I just want to go play video games. Yeah. There's a piece of me that gets super bummed when I ask my kids to do something and they have no interest, right?
I know. It's
hard.
That's such a bummer. That's partly what I didn't even emphasize when I say a selfless leader. Like I had all these hopes and dreams, And many of those dreams for my own kids, they're never going to happen. They didn't happen because my kids aren't into them. They were my dreams, not theirs. Right?
Fulfill my dream. Why? That's why I had you. Okay, right. I need you to fulfill my dream.
Honestly, that's kind of true though. That's why I had you is something that we all think we should say it more often. I'm gonna try to remember to say it to my kids this week and see how they respond. Hey, this is why I do it to mine. Right?
When they do chores, when you say, okay, Tom, wait on, that's the only reason why we had you, is so that we could get labor out of you before you move out. All right, my third one is I've got a new appreciation for life, right? I know that we are on a fleeting timeline and that these kids grow up so fast, right? And you know what? And I really appreciate the creation of life. Like, we are helping create life. Yeah. Like, that is weird to think about. Like, something created us, and we get to continue that creation process. There's no reason we deserve that, right? And
honor.
I think of this like we're in this expanding world. There's future generations. I was walking next to a cemetery a while back, and I'm just walking, looking at headstones. I like doing that every once in a while. It's weird.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I'm like, what was their life like?
Yeah.
How old was this person?
Yeah.
What's their name?
Yeah.
Wow, they were born in the 1800s. What was it like then? Oh, they only lived 20 years. Oh, there's a baby here, right? And I'm just thinking about all these people who were on this planet before us, and now they're not. They were here for a short time, and they're gone. And we are here in that short time right now, and then we will be gone, right? Yeah. Like, it's so cool that we're able to create future generations, and that I get to be a father in this short time that I'm here. So that's my third one. It's pretty cool. I think it's wild. This is wild.
Well said. I'm going to take what you just said. I'm going to turn that into an Instagram reel because it was so beautiful. I love it. Thank you.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wrote it down. All right, I got my third one. And then my third one is this. Oh, my gosh. This number 3 is something I think about all the time. I don't think about death anymore. I think about this. How parenting.
Yeah, we know. Hooking up with your wife. We get it, dude. We get it.
Yes, that is on there too. But that's not how parenting changed me. That was there all the time. Okay. I am now very comfortable being uncomfortable.
Ooh, that's good.
Let me explain. Like, I don't know about you, but my day is filled with a lot of stress. Right. My kids do not, especially my 8-year-old, who's the most challenging of my 3. She doesn't always listen. Sometimes I feel disrespected. I feel like my relationship with time is not anyone else's relationship with time. I like to be at church on time, for example.
Sure.
And I'm the only one in my family that seems to feel that way. I like to being on meetings on time. I like doing things a certain way. And sometimes I feel disrespected. I feel powerless. I feel underappreciated. I feel unseen. I feel unimportant. I feel stressed. Did I mention that? I feel scared. I feel scared about money, about the future. I feel doubtful. Like, am I a good parent? Did I do a good job?
Okay.
Am I doing enough? And I just have come to a place here at age 46, been parenting for almost 20 years. And now I'm just very comfortable feeling these things because I know I don't always feel them. They come and go. I'll feel better soon. And it's just a normal part of being a good parent is being in touch with your emotions and just not freaking out or doing stupid stuff or saying stupid stuff when I feel them.
And I mimic that, or I understand that. I have empathy for you because, like, I've had to give up the timeline, right? Because I'm like, hey, we got a road trip. I need to be out of the house by 4:30 a.m. so the kids will go back to sleep. I can be on the road for 2 hours before they wake up and bug me. And then, of course, it's 5:30. And I'm like, gosh, dang it, our timeline's ruined. And that could literally spawn in a terrible day for me. Dude. But I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. No. Let it pass. It's all good. And that's
Bro,
you.
I had a huge wake-up call
good.
when I spent, like, an hour. This was like a long time ago, like probably 7 years ago. Big family trip to Disneyland, and I spent like an hour or two mapping out how we're gonna spend our whole trip, dude.
Oh yeah,
I was like, I got it. Fast passes, and I was like, I got some good plans for us, guys. It's gonna be great. And then we get there, and everyone in my family is like, we're not doing that. And I'm like, what? Like, this is the best plan ever. I'm the dad.
Right.
Like, listen
I just
to
spent
me.
all this time.
I spent all this time. Like, that is parenting. Parenting is like, you're a dentist and your kids don't really want to brush your teeth. Parenting is you are the world's greatest Disneyland coordinator. That's not me. And they're like, no, we just want to go with the flow. Right? Parenting is you're a fitness coach and your kids love junk food and more than you. That is parenting. I think.
Don't let this discourage you into thinking, why even bother? Keep trying, okay? Because it's actually working, even though you don't think it is.
Yeah, it really is. I think for me, like part of this joy that I feel of being, comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, is I've just learned to not take things personally.
That's good.
And I've learned that
That's
my
hard to do.
emotional happiness, my emotional well-being is not dependent on the other humans in my house. I'm a leader. I'm going to choose joy and love and kindness and gentleness and self-control and goodness and patience. I'm going to try to pursue that every day, even if I don't feel good or no one else is choosing that, because that's, I think, what we should all strive to do. And I think that's what good parenting is. I think if we all did that, the world is going to be an amazing place and our homes are going to be amazing.
That's really wise, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, we did really good stuff today. I knew we were going to have a fun time today.
So fun. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned a little something. Hopefully you can think about what are the 3 things that has changed you in parenting. Write them down. Read them every once in a while. They'll change throughout your journey.